As per usual on this channel, this video is already extremely late, but we are going to try to do it even though we've never did it, so be prepared for terrible news. Hello beautiful bookworms, my name is Katarina and welcome to my channel, and let's pretend that this is the first video that you see in January of 2022, which is not, but we never do things in time here. So I've been having some people telling me that I should be doing a favorites video, not favorites or worse video, and that I should talk to you about things that I want to be doing on the channel. So kind of a 2022 New Year goals and stuff, and just talking about last year. So I decided to hear those voices, and I hope you enjoy this video. I am going to mix my favorite books or best books of 2021 with the worst books of 2021, which thankfully are not that many. And we'll also just talk about channel goals for a little bit. I hope it's going to be a short video. If you're not interested, I'm very, very sorry. If you are though, I'm here for you. So according to my Goodreads, last year I read a total of 25,735 pages, which, I mean, when you put it like that, it's a lot, but I read a lot of manga and comics, so that's also there. And I have read 110 books, so I'd set my goal to 50, then I changed it to 100, and then I changed it to 120 because something inside me believed that I was going to be able to do that. I wasn't, I read 110, but I mean, I don't believe on the Goodreads goal. I just do it to keep track of the reading that I'm doing. So if you finish your Goodreads goal, good for you. If you haven't, good for you as well. What matters is that you enjoyed what you read and that you read for fun. That's always going to be my perspective on it. So yeah, it's not a race, people. So yeah, I did read it, and now we're going to talk about some of the books. So apparently my shortest book had 12 pages, but I would say 22 because it was a comic, and it's not normal that comics have 12 pages. So I'm guessing that Goodreads is not that right on this one, and it's going to be 22 pages. And my longest book was Empire of the Vampire, which is the second I'm going to show it to you. Okay, my longest book of last year was Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff, which you can see it is really long, and apparently it has 739 pages, which I'm going to check because the edition that Goodreads lets me put on it is not the same edition that I have. So, 19, sort of 719, give or take. It's not 739, but I mean, I don't know how these scores are made, but apparently this was the biggest book that I read, which, same, I felt it. Especially when, and I have to share this story because it talks about things that happened last year, when I actually dropped that shit on my head because I fell asleep while reading it, as one does, and I kind of hurt myself. But I mean, that is just things that happen to a reader, is opening your skull with the books that you read. I mean, did it never happen to you? Because to me, it's like monthly. So, other interesting stats is that the average book length that I read in 2021 was 233 pages. So as you can see, I haven't read a lot of big books, which for me, it's terrifying. I used to read only big books, but apparently I wasn't in the fucking mood. Then the most popular book that I read was my reread of Twilight, because apparently, wow, okay, a lot of people also shelved that. And then my latest popular one was my least popular one was Rage by Sue Rovens, which I'm gonna just show you because I don't want to put, there you go. There it is. Only 32 people shelved this one. This was a NetGalley book that I got. I didn't like it very much, so I understand why not many people have it on their shelves. My average rating for the year was 3.8, which is kind of cool, actually. I do remember giving a lot of 2 and 3 stars, so that might be why. So now I'm going to go through my year in books and tell you what my favorites were. So, yeah, I started my reading year with manga. I read a lot of manga. Oh, and here we are in my first favorites. So, my favorite series of 2021 was the Witcher series. I have read pretty much all of the series, so from book 3, which is the beginning of the actual written series, because the other two previously are short story collections, I read from book 3 until book 7. And then I did read book 8 because it's an extra story, but it's not set on the same timing of the other. And The Witcher was my favorite series for 2021. It was also the series that I read more books of, which is not entirely normal, but I absolutely love The Witcher. If you haven't seen the show, go see it, but do be advised that as a reader, I think the show is confusing, but that's because I think the show is kind of giving you plot points that are talked about in the books but are not developed, and so you reach some conclusions just because of your mind work and not exactly because they're told to you. And so I think that the show is kind of doing the background that the books chose not to do. So of course this series is by Andrzej Sapkowski, and if you haven't read it, I would strongly recommend it because it's one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, and that must count for something, I guess. I read a lot of NetGalley books that were gifted to me so that I could review them. Some of them I enjoyed, some of them I didn't. Most of them I just gave them 3 stars or 2 stars, but there were some hidden gems in there. Of course, now we could talk about my favorite manga series, since we've talked about my favorite book series of 2021. My favorite manga series was, without a shred of a doubt, sorry, I even choked myself here, it was Magos of the Library by Mitsu Izumi, and I have read 4 volumes of Magos of the Library in 2021, and I was incredibly in love with this series. I have already read the 5th one that already came out, and I'm still in love with this series. From the get-go, this series is perfect. It's a perfect series for people that love books, but also a perfect series for people that actually like epic fantasy and political fantasy. And just the developing of characters and a large cast of characters that you can really enjoy and grow up with. I absolutely love this series. I would never say otherwise, I hope. And I know that the 6th volume of this is coming out on June of 2022. I will probably only have it a little bit later, but I'm counting on reading the 6th volume and then do a brief review of the 2nd trilogy, since I've done a review that I will leave somewhere of the 1st trilogy. And so, yeah. I also have to talk about a manga that I haven't read anything more of, but as a first volume of a series, of an ongoing series, it just captured my heart as well, and that is Witch Hat Atelier Volume 1. This is by Kamome Shirama, and it's basically the story of this young woman. She wanted to be a magician, but supposedly you have to be born with powers and not learning, and so she thinks that she's never going to be a magician. However, because of some sort of events that occur that I can't tell you, she starts learning magic. And magic systems here have to do with drawing and geometry and patterns, which are everything that I'm bad at, but it's just so beautiful and amazing, and the characters are so cute, and the art style is beautiful, and I have a feeling that this is going to turn dark pretty quickly, which I hope so, because we love the darkness. But I have the rest of the, well, not all of them, but I have a lot of other volumes to pick up of this series, and it was indeed one of my favorites of the year 2021. In what regards to comics, however, nothing, and I mean nothing, that I've read could be better than The Nice House on the Lake. And I have now read all of the 6 first issues, or meaning the first half of this series, which is only 12 issues long, sadly. And this is by James Tynion IV, Alvaro Martinez Bueno, and Jordi Belair. And this is perfection. It's supposed to be a horror series, but it's very tamed on horror tropes and topics, in my opinion. So if you are someone that has never read horror, I think you could try get into this one. There's not a lot of trigger warnings for the thingies. There's actually some representation. There's a trans character. There is 2 gay characters. There's also people of color introduced, which I found it amazing because we are dealing with a very small group of people in this story. It's a small group of people that are invited to get to this house, and then shit unfolds, and I cannot tell you anything else about it. So I was really happy that they actually chose people that represent a lot of people in society and not just a bunch of white people in the same house, because we have had that in a lot of horror movies. We don't need that. And the thing is that these people are actually really incredible. So they're not like your normal dumb jock and your cheerleader and everything. So they're actual people with actual professions that actually make sense, and they think and they're somewhat clever. So it's amazing to see this unfold. The art style of this is beautiful. The telling of this, the narration of this is incredible. And I have so many theories for this, and I loved it very, very much. And so we reach my favorite book of 2021. I have done a review on this book, which I'm going to leave a link up above. And this is a book that I actually stole from a friend of mine because I loved it so much that I had to keep it. It was a surprise for me. I had no expectations going in. I have heard it was cool from that friend, but I didn't know how impactful it was going to be in me, and I won a new friend because of it, so I'm actually really happy about it. And that is For Rye by Gavin Gardner. And this is a horror book, a really actual horrifying horror book. It has a lot of trigger warnings. I have stated some of them in my review video, so if you're curious, go watch it. And this is a story of a writer called Renata Wakefield, and she is very traumatized and she is thinking about ending her life. She has this plan. She's just going to put an end to herself with no problem. She's going to be okay. But one day she receives a notification that her mother was violently murdered in some ritualistic murder in her old town. And so before she kills herself, she has to go home and kind of take care of her dad and figure out who the fuck killed her mother and why. And at the same time, she meets this strange character who is called Rye, and he is a horror author, and their dynamic is very strange and compelling, and yeah, it's kind of them discovering who killed her mom. But there's more to it than that. You actually see a great portray of mental illness in this book. Of course that I spent the entirety of the book screaming, please, therapy, people. But of course, I would like to state that I don't like that mentally ill people are portrayed as angry and violent most of the time. But in this book, the way that Renata was portrayed and the way that we see her trauma develop going back and forth in her life, and the way that we see her deal with their actual real life in the moment was perfection for me. There are beautiful lines in here, beautifully haunting lines, actually. Writing style for Gavin is perfection. It just gets you so into the novel that you can't see anything else around you, and you get out and it's like you're in another world. It's great. I loved For Rye. I'm really happy that I have a copy of it so I can reread it as many times as I want, and maybe just note my favorite passages. I don't know. So this is my favorite book for 2021. I know that it's kind of a Hindi horror sort of thing. You probably don't know about it, but if you like to read horror and you're okay with some triggers, definitely For Rye, definitely. So, worst things of the year, quickly. I didn't have a lot of them. I had more of like disappointing reads and reads that I didn't care about than actual worst reads of the year. But one of them was one that I was really, really sad about, and that is the 2 issues of The Joker, A Puzzle Box. Issue 1 and issue 2. Those are the ones that I read. The other ones I haven't got to yet. They haven't got to me yet. This is by Rosenberg, Marino, Hickson, and Ariola. And I really didn't like this. I know that writing a story about the Joker and other villains is difficult, but everything was so fucking messed up that I'm not entirely sure that actually these people know what they're doing whilst tackling a story like this. This is basically, the premise of this is the Riddler is dead. And people think that some villain of Gotham killed him. So it's like Gordon trying to interview the villains of Gotham and asking them, like, who the fuck killed the Riddler? But the Joker is like, I want to talk, I know what happened, and he's just feeding them lies and shit about this quest, like Indiana Jones sort of quest that the Riddler was doing to find this puzzle box of shit, and that every villain was after that for some fucking reason. It makes no sense, and I know maybe it's supposed to portray the frustration of the Commissioner Gordon and the other police teams trying to actually see if the Joker is saying anything that makes sense, but the fact is, you don't have a cohesive, coherent, and interesting plot. So for the reader, it's painfully boring, and I really didn't like it, which is really sad because you know that I'm obsessed with the Joker, and I love every single story about the Joker, but not this one, apparently. And an author that I've read 2 books of in 2021 and hated the first one and really strongly disliked the second one was S.K. Tremaine. I've read The Ice Twins and I hated that book. Hated it. I actually sold it away. Like, I was considering giving it to charity, but then I thought, well, shit, I mean, do I want people to read this? No. So if you want to read this, purchase this from me because, I mean, obviously with discounted price because it was used and I already read it, but yeah. And then I read The Fire Child, which was a shit show of a book as well, but it was a little bit better than The Ice Twins, so I still have 1 book by S.K. Tremaine in this house, which probably is going to be on my list of worst books of 2022, but maybe not. I mean, this one was better than the last one. S.K. Tremaine has this thing that he does. He always has creepy children, he always has a female narrator, and then he has plot points from the view of the male narrator, and he always has a mental ill woman that is a danger to herself and others because she's completely out there. She has this crazy mental illness and she just gets amnesia or crazy as hell, and she's a danger to the child and to the husband and to everything around her, and she can't, at least in the ending of this, and I'm spoiling the ending of The Fire Child for those of you that want to read it, I'm very sorry for that, but at least in the ending of this, like, the woman got better and she could move on with her life. But in the end of The Ice Twins, I mean, fuck that book. I hated that book, and I know that people go to trouble writing. I mean, I should know. I'm trying to write, and I know that it's hard, and I know that not everyone is going to like what you did, but I mean, you have to stop using plot twists and plot points about mental illness in the wrong way and portraying people with mental illness as dangerous subjects without actually addressing it in the plot, as Foray does. He addresses that. And just splash this shit. I mean, I hate it. And the children are so fucking annoying. And I mean, I have no children, truth. But I have seen children, I've babysat children, I've talked to children, and none of those children are like this. And you might say, well, but every single child he writes is traumatized. You know what I mean? Okay? It's just, I hate it. I hate it. And it's always in the fucked up island or isolated place for some fucking reason. I mean, those are cool as fuck tropes if done right. And I'm sick and tired of seeing women just being like, I want to fuck my man. The only good thing in my life is that we have sexual attraction, and I just want to give him a child, give him a baby, and I just want to, I'm glad that we hate each other, but we can still fuck. That's not the point of the fucking story! So, I am probably selling this book as well. I don't like it. Another one that I didn't enjoy, and I'm going to show you right here, is actually Rage by Sue Rovens. Why? Let me tell you why. Because Rage is about this man. He apparently is a bigger person, like a bit fat, as it is drained on your skull throughout the entirety of the fucking book. Everyone that looks at him thinks about him as if he is like this terrible fat creature. There's a lot of fat shaming on this book. Point 1 of why I didn't like it. I mean, you can say that this person is a little bit overweight or really overweighted, but you don't have to diminish your character throughout the entirety of the fucking thing. Whatever. And this person, he had enough of his life because he's been mistreated and bullied for everyone. And so he decides he's going to kill himself. But when he's trying to kill himself, the firemen arrive and they save him. And so he's given to this psychologist, which, if this is a psychologist, my God, I don't want to do my job anymore, because I'm a psychology major. I majored in psychology. And this is not... Okay. We're all human and we're all flawed, but that creature, honest to God, wrong profession. As I was saying, and he goes to this psychologist, this woman, and she is supposed to treat him because he can kill himself. He's a suicidal patient, and so she has to deal with him, as you normally do in clinical psychology if you are in that part of psychology. And he decides that he needs a new meaning for his life, and the meaning that he finds is to kill people. And this could be done amazingly, because in what regards mental health, it wasn't insulting as S.K. Tremaine's books were. The fact of the matter is, first of all, it portrayed the psychologist as a failure of a person in what it meant a profession. And I mean, there's good and bad professionals everywhere, and I am not a perfect professional at all. We all have flaws, but that person didn't care about anything at all. And she looked at her patient and she was like, oh my God, he's so fat, he's so ugly, and he's sitting on my couch and I hate him. Why does he have to sit there? He's going to leave grease everywhere. Why are you judging your patient, first of all? Second of all, don't you think that that might be why he tried to kill himself? Because he's not okay with who he is? Shouldn't you address it and try to help him instead of judging him for that? I mean, do you know if he has a disease that makes him be like that? Or do you know if he has a compulsion to eat that makes him look like that? Do you know if you can help instead of just being there criticizing him? And then he sort of tells her that he starts to kill people, and she doesn't give a fucking shit. I mean, you're supposed to warn someone when these things happen. I hated it. I hate the relationship, and I hope that none of you had this type of relationship with a psychological professional. But it's a stupid relationship that never... I can't even imagine it happening. But whatever. I hated the way it was portrayed, and I hated the way that he was portrayed as why he wanted to kill people. Like, it could be further and better developed, and then the ending of it was so far fucking fetched that I was like, okay, is this what you're going to do now? I mean, you were seeing the end from a mile away. I couldn't. But yeah, I didn't really enjoy it, and I'm really sad because it was an arc that Nagale provided for me, and I really wanted to say good things about these authors that are out there putting up their works, but I couldn't. It wasn't right. It wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't good. So those are all for the best and worst books, and now let's talk a little bit, because this video is getting really big, about this channel and where I'm going with it. So, I have received some questions previously when I ask for Q&As. I sadly don't have a lot of questions when I ask for Q&As, but maybe that will change, I don't know. But I have received some questions asking like, are you going to do a readathon? What's the plans for your channel? Are you going to, readathon? I can already answer you that it's not my top priority at the moment, unless all of you want to do it. Like, if you want to do it, I can try and take a little bit of a time to think of a readathon to do. But it's not my priority for very simple reasons. First of all, there's amazing and great readathons out there that just go through the year, and I think that those creators have a lot of work put onto those readathons for me to just be like, okay, so I'm going to do a new readathon that pretty much nobody will care for, and I'll be just taking space that I could be fulfilling whilst just doing their readathons and enjoying the readathons with them, because they're better creators than me and they have beautiful readathons. So for now, and even apart from that, I don't have a lot of time to spend doing readathons. I am finishing, well, I'm on my third year of my PhD. I have a lot of time to go. I have a lot of things to write, to try and publish and submit, and I have a project to get into, so I can't really be spending time more than outside of my normal videos where I talk to you a little bit about the books that I've read. And I can't just think of a big readathon to encompass everything and have people... Because when I do stuff, I like to be 100% into the stuff that I do. And that wouldn't be the case. And I would be lying to you, and it wouldn't be good. So for that reason alone, I'm not thinking about doing it. But if you want me to do it, tell me something in the comments down below, maybe give ideas, and I could think about it one day when I don't have as many work as I have right now. Then, more channel goals. Channel goals are the same as always. I want to read more manga, which I've read a fair amount of manga in 2021, but I want to read more. I have a lot of manga in this house, and I have to read it to see if it's good, to see if it's not, to recommend to you, because I know that you guys like to hear me talk about manga. It's some of my most viewed videos is when I talk about manga, which is great. I would also like you to pay attention to other books, because there's more to life than manga, but it's amazing that I feel like I am one of the people that are pushing manga into BookTube. I know that I don't have that many subscribers as some of the creators that I know that talk about manga, but it's great to feel that I'm part of something, and I do believe that I bring you new stuff every single time that I talk about manga. I also want to read more comics, especially the comics that I do have in the house as well, but I'm thinking about trying to branch out a little. I know, for instance, that it's going to come some new series from Disney Plus, like Moon Knight and other stuff, and I would like to maybe try and read some comics and pairing it to it. I don't know, just do more TV movies or TV shows versus the books, and reading more different types of things. I don't branch out a lot. I read fantasy, horror, and sometimes classics. So I would like to branch out a bit. On that note, I would like to read more classics. I have seen that a lot of people enjoy my classic reviews, and I do think they're helpful if you don't want to read the entirety of the classic, but you want to know what it talks about. I like to talk about it like some review for your English lit classroom, I don't know, but I really like classics, and so I'm thinking about reading more of them, since I have a whole lot of them that I haven't picked up yet, so that could be good. I also want to read maybe more horror in 2022, because even though I've read some thrillers in 2021, which weren't a lot, I haven't read a lot of horror. So I really want to try that. I really want to try to branch out and read more. And something that I wanted to try as well is for the manga thing. I wanted to do more in-depth reviews of manga series. For instance, we have The Girl from the Other Side, which is a very known manga series. I have the entirety of that manga series. I haven't finished reading it yet, but I was thinking of doing a review about the manga series. I was thinking about doing reviews about manga authors or other authors, like for instance Haruki Murakami, which is my favorite author, like doing a series where I talk about his books and stuff like that. Also doing a series about specific characters if you would like to see it and if you'd like to hear me talk about it, like for instance the Joker, which is my favorite villain. Stuff like that, like doing specific in-depth reviews of things. Tell me in the comments down below if you would like that, because I won't do stuff that you won't like, because that doesn't make sense. Maybe if it's just something that I really have to do, but it doesn't make sense. I am hoping to actually support more indie authors also in 2022, because I've been seeing, especially in horror, a lot of people coming out with great stuff that I haven't been getting, and I would love to bring attention to that. And I also would like to support a new printer in Portugal, which is Desroutine, which can be translated to off the routine. And that's a new printer that is going to print different, more POC, more interesting for the young adult, new adult generation, more new quality content. And I have got their first book, which is Ace of Spades. You probably all know this, but this is something that just came out in Portugal. And I think we should praise this type of initiatives, and I want to support them. So that's also going to be a goal, to try and read their books per month. We will see how that goes. I can't promise anything. As for personal goals, I still don't know how I'm going to do this and if I'm going to do this on this channel, but I restarted to write. And so I don't know if maybe I'm going to talk about this here. I was hoping to do more vlogs. I've seen a lot of great responses to my vlogs, the way that I talk about mental health, the way that I talk about what I'm reading and what I'm doing. It's something that helps me just getting what I need. just feeling a little bit more human to talk about some people and to show them what I'm doing in my daily life. And it brings the support that I need to actually do the things that I need to do in life. And so because of that, I think that I might do some more vlogs, and I think that I might talk a little bit about my writing if you guys want to know about that. I mean, it might be boring. I don't know how I'm gonna go about that, but if it's something that you like to hear, commenting down below, tell me, yeah, Catherine, of course I want to know about your amazing book, which has like 2 pages at the moment, but I mean, I don't know. That's one of the things. Of course, I'm focusing more on my studies and on my PhD, but I can talk to you about that as well if you want to know how my journey is going, what I'm taking, my results. Obviously, not talking about my participants because I can't, but all of that. And yeah, so those are my plans. Oh my god, this video is gigantic, so that's going to be all for this video, and happy readings to you all. Thank you for continuing to support me in 2022. Bye!